Hello, my name is Orla. In this channel I read short stories for children and adults who are interested. In this video I'll be reading another story from Gods Don't Cry, a great book by Ellen Ryan with fabulous illustrations from Conor Merriman. In this video I'll be reading the story about a half boy, half monster called Mechi. So get cozy, cuddle down, and we'll begin. Mechi, or Mechi I should say, was a playful young god with green eyes and black curls. And that's him there. Oh boy. Green eyes, black curls, and though he didn't know it yet, he was dying. Mechi lived with his mother, Morgan, the great war goddess who encouraged her son to have fun and fueled his imagination with stories and magic. She told him their bodies were made from ancient stardust, and that the moon was made of cheese. They had set up home on the outer world island of Danger, a land of jagged rock cliffs and burning sands. It was surrounded by choppy, shark-infested waters, and the stormy sky howled with cyclones. Mechi loved it. There were always adventures to be had while riding man-eating water horses across the waves or stroking the rough fur of killer cats that prowled the shore catching fish. But once, when Mechi was horsing around, he felt a strange tightness in his heart, followed by explosive pain. His screams echoed over the rocks and across the island. Right away, Morgan heard them. The sky darkened as she flew to shore on the back of a giant three-headed bird and swooped down to reach her son. Mechi had never seen his mother look so frightened, her face white against her blood-red braids. Her fear frightened him too. "What's happening to me, Mammy?" he croaked, clutching at the pain in his chest. Morgan had no idea. Mechi was an immortal god. A sword or a spear could injure him, but he wasn't supposed to know sickness or pain. She scooped up her son onto the bird's back, and together they soared upwards and across the sky. But instead of flying home, Morgan steered them straight into a cyclone that caught them up in its swirling power. The wind spun them so fast that Mechi felt sick. The cyclone spat them out in Ireland, where they landed in a large green field. "You're safe now," Morgan comforted her son. "This is my Tura in County Sligo, home of Dian Set. He is both a warrior god and one of the greatest physicians. He will know how to fight this strange illness." Morgan called Mechi to Dian Set's stone fort. The healer grabbed his medical bag and quickly brought his young patients to Slania, which is a well of health. Here he doused Mechi in the magical waters while he muttered powerful incantations. Dian had brought injured mortals back from the dead before, yet his spell had no effect on Mechi. "I will have to cut the boy open to find out what's wrong," Dian said, reaching for a surgical blade in his bag. It's the only way I'll know how to treat him. Shocked and terrified, Mechi looked to his mother, who struggled to mask the same emotions. "If you must," she said, "but if you cause my son any more pain, I will tear your head from your shoulders." She lay Mechi down on the ground and rested his head on her lap, while Diane cut the clothing away from his chest. Then, taking his blade, Diane made an incision to examine his patient's organs. Mechi was horrified. The strange doctor was cutting his body open. The coppery smell of blood made the young god feel woozy. He wanted to jump up and run away, but the pain in his heart was so bad that he knew he had to lie still and let the ancet fix him. "Well now, Mechi, your heart looks a little enlarged, perhaps from an infection," the ancet said. "Unusual in a god perhaps, but common in mortals. I know what to do." But what happened next changed each of their lives forever. From a crack in Mechi's heart, a tiny snake slowly surfaced. It raised its head, coiled around itself 3 times, and hissed at Diane. Panicked, the grown-ups argued in high-pitched voices over what to do. "I have to perform surgery and cut that thing out," Diane said. "You will rupture my son's heart in the process," Morrigan roared. "I won't risk it." "The snake will grow, Morrigan. You saw what it was, an ancient underworld parasite. If left unchecked, the serpent will get bigger and spread through his body, taking him over, until Mechi is gone and only the monster remains." Serious stuff. Mechi was stunned. Did he hear the doctor right? Was he going to die? He'd never even considered the possibility that he could die. The god felt strangely numb, as if he wasn't in his body, but floating somewhere above it. Then everything went black. When Mechi woke up, he was back at home with his mother. His pain had dulled, his chest had been sewn up, and he was in fresh clothes. Morrigan never mentioned what had happened and carried on as if everything was normal. In fact, life was better than before. Mechi was allowed to play as often and for as long as he liked, and every day Morrigan gave him rowan berries with fresh honey and cream. But every now and then, Mechi's pain grew much worse, and he saw sadness in his mother's eyes that he desperately wanted to fix. After weeks of silence on the subject, Mechi summoned up the courage to face it. "Mammy, remember you once told me that our bodies are made of ancient stardust?" he asked one windy morning as they sat by the shore. "I wonder what the stardust did before it formed my body. It must have had lots of adventures, don't you think? What do you think the stardust might become after I die? I think I'd like to be a mortal warrior next. No, maybe a bull, or do you think it would be nice to live as a tree?" "We don't need to talk about that because it won't happen," Morrigan snapped, staring out to the sea instead of looking at her son. "I'm a war goddess. I will fight that serpent and win." Mechi felt new hope at hearing this. His mother's power was legendary. If she thought the illness could be beaten, she must be right. So Mechi and Morrigan decided to leave home again in search of new and better treatments. First, they travelled to County Limerick to visit the great healer, Anya. She had an exciting idea: to make a small incision in Mechi's chest and slather it with meadow sweet. She said this would draw the serpent out of its hiding place, and it almost worked. Anya caught sight of the snake, but at the last minute the monster slipped back into Mechi's heart. Then they visited the white-haired alchemist Mong Fionn in her Limerick fort. She brewed a special draught to try and poison the snake. The potion made Mechi throw up, but didn't kill the creature. Mong Fionn sent Mechi to rest in another room so that she and his mother could speak privately. But Mechi could guess what was going on. He sensed that the snake was growing. It was going to kill him. There was nothing they could do. Mechi hated this thing inside him. It caused him pain when he was trying to play. It made him feel different and separate from his mother. It was stealing his chance to grow up and be a warrior or have a family. Mechi felt like he would rip apart with rage and fear and sadness. He let out a roar and ran from the room out to the fields beyond. Morrigan chased after him, but she couldn't hold him back, so she ran by his side over hills and through woods, and she screamed too. They tore up grass, threw stones, and kicked boulders. As day turned to night and the moon rose over the trees, they howled like wolves until their voices were hoarse and their bodies so tired they collapsed to their knees. But Mechi felt one final burst of anger towards his mother. "Why won't you talk to me about what's happening? I feel so alone." "Because I can't face it," Morrigan said, pulling her son into a rough hug. "And because it is my fault. I'm a goddess of monsters and war. Some strange darkness inside me must have passed them on to you. And for all my brilliance in battle, I can't fight it. I can't protect you." Finally, Mechi understood his mother. She was struggling with her own pain and guilt and fear, and he felt the distance between them closing. But he wanted her to understand him too. "It's not your fault, Mammy. Never think that. But we must accept that the healers can't help us. I'm tired of getting my hopes up. I want to stop fighting the serpent and live while I live. So can't we just go home and play now?" Morrigan had never accepted defeat before. But for her son, she agreed. Back home, Mechi showed her how to tumble down a mountain and ride water horses over the waves. They even discussed how it would feel to be a tree. The mother and son lived as much as they could in each moment. And Morrigan realised this wasn't defeat, it was victory. Through total acceptance, Mechi had shown the way to really live even in the face of death. In his own way, he was as brave a warrior as his mother. But in time, the serpent grew so big that Mechi couldn't play anymore and had to stay in bed. And though he would almost certainly die, Mechi felt he would rather have the creature cut out of him than be overtaken by it. So they called for Diane to come and perform his surgery. The physician arrived at Mechi's bedside and gave him strong sleeping herbs. Mechi held his mother's hand and smiled at her as he drifted into a dream. Diane did try to remove the snake without harming Mechi, but sadly it wasn't possible, and he had to remove Mechi's heart. The young god didn't survive the operation. But Mechi didn't feel any pain, and just as he hoped, the stardust that had come together to form his body soon went on to have new adventures. Some of his stardust became a fizzling sea wave, some a wild horse, giddy with freedom as it galloped across open plains, some of him became a rowanberry tree, offering its tart fruit to hungry birds, while some became a warm breeze that rippled through summer fields. And Mechi got to have each of these wonderful adventures all at once. Back on the island of danger, Morgan felt Mechi's presence on the air whenever she tumbled down mountains or rode white seahorses over waves. She hoped that someday the part of Mechi that was aware of the world around him and had loved her, the invisible part that no one could harm or cut out of his body, would return to her. But until then, Mechi Stardust had many more adventures to come. Good story. Boys Don't Cry. Right. Really good. At the end. Till the next one. Bye bye.